Hi, Tony. Hi, welcome everyone. How are
Hi.
you?
Yeah, all very well indeed. So Daniel, we've got just 10 minutes or so. I'm going to crack on with the first question, which I know your your listeners will be interested in hearing the answer to. You've just been out buying companies, haven't you? You just bought another one.
Well,
What?
yeah. I mean, in the spirit of being agile, Tony. Obviously, it's really great to kind of come on here and have a chat to you. I always love chatting to you in the PA. But yeah, we've got a lot of exciting things going on in our business and expanding. And we made an acquisition in December, actually. But I thought you asked me to sort of think about industry themes. So I thought I'd maybe start off with a couple of comments around industry themes and then how that kind of relates into some of the thinking and some of the acquisitions that we've done recently.
Please.
So I think because one of the things that struck me over the last few years is, the network of people's partnerships in payments has just grown and grown. And, so in most cases, that's obviously a really, really good thing. But it feels like over the last 6 months, 12 months, there's been a number of companies and businesses that have really started to polarize in that world. And you have, businesses that are kind of coining the term orchestration technology, essentially, and really trying to become collaborators, the grand collaborators, I guess, in partnerships, and making sure that technology, that link to the merchant, is more than just pure payments, and orchestration being the word of where they're actually going to send those transactions or send that information. And sometimes it's not even payment information. There's other value-added services and things, and that's on one side. And then on the other side, you've kind of got bigger businesses, particularly in certain verticals and software houses, that actually have found that working with partners, a multitude of partners, isn't actually that easy when you've got to really, really get things moving, and it takes a lot of time and effort and continued discussion and communication to really start getting these partnerships glued in and scaled. So I think there's been a little bit of a polarization in my mind about how certainly payment businesses work with partners. And that's kind of what we found, or we're finding. Certainly, we're a payment business that is growing, obviously, specifically in the UK market, and we link in with lots of parties and connected parties, particularly EPOS providers, software providers at point of sale and things. And we were increasingly find that we have really good, strong relationships with certain EPOS providers, and actually other EPOS providers, wouldn't talk to us because they'd already maybe had a deal in place with other payment businesses. So we kind of, in a way, polarized commercially. So guess what? We decided that actually in those relationships, we should have our own EPOS provider, because that would allow us then, if people, wanted a solution combined with payments, well, that means we're locked out. We actually, last December, just before Christmas, acquired an EPOS provider, and they do. I won't mention their name, because it's not about a plug for us as a business, but just giving you the wider context. Because they provide, really good cloud-based software for various industries, but primarily, high street retail, supermarkets, local convenience stores. And that software goes on an Android device. It's very, very quick to deploy. And guess what will now be part of our stable, where if a merchant isn't happy with its EPOS provider or needs support a combined solution, we can then support that by just giving that whole package. And I think that's kind of an industry trend that we'll probably increasingly see. So I guess that just to put a context around what we're doing within the wider industry.
Very helpful, and presumably that you think that will give reassurance to those companies that are developing a specific solution that they can partner with a range of other people too.
Yeah, exactly, and it means that they're not locked into certain providers. That they can move. A lot of people have fear about moving provision, They may think about moving payment providers even. It's become maybe the norm to do that. But actually some of their other core technologies and, are up for grabs. And I think, there's still the huge digitization wave yet to come in, in small businesses. Big businesses are probably on top of that trend, obviously. But the mid-sized business, the small-sized business that has, really kind of a fight on its hands, obviously with high street retail having to compete really hard with e-commerce providers. Yeah.
And we talked about this a little bit earlier about sort of another trend you're seeing in terms of the direct-to-consumer market. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing there?
Yeah. So I think that's the next step on, because as I say, I think in an increasingly digitized world where high street providers are really facing tough times, right? Many of them have to compete with online marketplaces and the obvious ones, Amazon, etc. How do they do that? So this concept of really enabling direct-to-consumer journeys with websites, with logistic chains, with supply chains, with all of the software that's needed in that supply chain. Again, I think is going to be a really, really important part of how payments works. Because for us all probably on this call, payments is our worlds, or but certainly part of our worlds. Actually, that's not really the case for most merchants in a way. They just want it to work, right? They just want things to work seamlessly and quickly. So I think helping them, expanding that service proposition is really where we think that the market's certainly going.
Yes, certainly I agree that payments often is at the heart of things, and I don't think I'm just saying that to make us all feel good about our industry, but payments is where the money is, and it all glues in. We talk about networking here, but we are at the heart of the network, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. But to get to that money, I guess there are maybe several layers of technology and business process and things, and where you've got Amazon taking sizable chunks of margin out of the industry of retail and supply chains. The reaction to that has to be for smaller businesses to think more agilely and think about how they supply their goods, and that's going to be much more of a direct-to-consumer market. Plus, I think there's probably a little bit of a wave of recession in certain sectors post-pandemic, but the resurgence for that, there's this bounce back economy, not bounce back loans, but bounce back economy, where actually people will be thinking about how they can grow businesses, start businesses, maybe that they thought about in the same way that the crash, in the late 90s happened, and that post crash economy was supported primarily by small businesses.
Yes, and a crisis often clears out the wheat from the chaff as well. The weaker companies go by the side, and those resources, those investments then feed back into the more, as you said, the more agile, the more progressive, those who are perhaps better suited to riding the next wave. And the final thing we were going to talk about briefly was the wave of interest in crypto and digital currencies.
Yeah, well, this is just phenomenal, really, because I think from what was quite perceived, at least, as a very risky venture, getting involved with crypto at all for any payments business was quite risky, or thought to be reputationally risky. It's almost gone the other way now, and I think particularly once the investors and the investor pool has changed its mindset, actually that's only really happened over the last 6 months, I think. Once that happened, crypto is really becoming mainstream, and I think we as a business support crypto, or at least crypto up into fiat to crypto payments, and surely we'll be sort of supporting the reverse leg. That's a massive trend, and again, as you know, Tony, we're involved in the green paper with the Payments Association around how crypto and the wider stablecoin blockchain solutions can really, really benefit cross-border trade, cross-border payments, and those use cases are really just starting to feel practical and real. And so you've got another plug there, right?
Well, thank you very much. And do you know what? That's a lovely way to end. Although I'm going to ask everybody on the call here to anticipate two things in February, two big events. 4th of February, the launch of this green paper on a new era for GBP, and then on the 7th of February, a chance for you to actually not only have an in-person PA at home event, but for you to drink and eat courtesy of Trust Payments, because they're sponsoring it. So you'll see Daniel possibly again, but certainly you'll have a chance to eat, drink, and be merry at his expense, which is always a pleasure, I've got to say.
Happy to.
Although I must say, Daniel, when I asked him to stand in for HSBC, he said there will be a big lunch on you, mate. So thank you very much indeed, Daniel Holden. I'll see you.